Should Nick Sirianni be one of the finalists?
Yes. Unequivocally, yes.
I agree with that. And I'm not a Nick Sirianni guy, I guess you could say. But he does not get nearly the respect. And let's just start in there. Put the awards to the side. When it comes to just the respect, the job he has done with the expectations, he does not get nearly enough respect. He is not viewed in the positive manner that he should be. And I don't understand why that is. My guess is, and you tell me if I'm wrong or right, my guess is people say that they could come in here and coach this team because of the embarrassment of riches that Howie Roseman has put together.
That's exactly what they say. That's exactly what they say. And the question earlier this year was, what does he do? Like, let me tell you what he did, how many storms he's weathered. This guy coached an all-time collapse last year.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe rightfully, maybe wrongfully, people were calling for his job at the end of last year.
Accountability, right?
Yep. Thank you, Coach.
And he took it, and he constantly takes accountability. And everyone was calling for his job. Weathers that storm, goes into this year, start 2-2. Everybody, this city and nationally, were calling for his job. The question on every national show, on every Philadelphia talk show, all the media is saying, can you win a Super Bowl with Nick Sirianni? Is he the right coach? Should he get fired now? Should he get fired at the end of the season? His job, people were saying his job was done. He wasn't going to make it through the season after a 2-2 start and some questionable calls. Sure, you can say, I still don't really think some of those calls were that questionable. Weathers that storm. He brought up his family, his kids to the podium, which he's done time and time again throughout his Eagles tenure. And people were killing him for that. You can say the sideline antics. Sure, it's all not, he's not the maybe the greatest talker in the world. He's fiery. Yeah, he is. He's not this like super presentable, like Sean McVay type who could go to TV and be a superstar immediately. I couldn't see TV or radio in Nick Sirianni's future.
No.
He's a football coach, though. That's not what he's paid to do.
He's not a football player, football coach. You're right.
Exactly. And what he's done is weather that storm. Now, his own player on his team says that the quarterback and star wide receiver don't have a good relationship and don't like each other. Weathers that storm. All these storms he's had to put out. He is a phenomenal player coach. He holds guys accountable. He constantly grows as a coach. Like, there's things that he needs to work on and constantly tells people, tells the media, okay, I have to work on my sideline antics. I have to work on this. I'm going to look at this. And he does. You can see his growth throughout the season. The reason why he should be coach of the year is because the Eagles weren't some Super Bowl contending juggernaut coming into the year. Sure, they were considered one of the better teams in the NFC. The Lions were right there with them, same Super Bowl odds coming into the year. The Niners were the favorite to go out of the NFC.
Correct.
This wasn't, everyone's like, oh, this roster's so good, he doesn't deserve any credit. Guys, this wasn't some like Chiefs that they were the favorite to win the Super Bowl before the season. It's a really good roster. Don't get me wrong. It's the most complete roster in the NFL, but they weren't considered that at the start of this season. And he coached them perfectly. 2-2 start into, what was it, like 10 straight wins? And the only loss was because Jalen Hurts goes out to Washington. I mean, he coached from that 2-2 start, week 5 bye,
Absolutely.
a perfect season. He did a tremendous job motivating, holding people accountable, bringing the group together. He's not the greatest schematic guy. He's not a good play caller as we've seen. He is a great football coach, and all he does is win games. And you know this because I was on your show months ago.
Yeah.
I have been a Nick Sirianni guy through and through. Even from that opening press conference that looked like a disaster. Everyone, calm down. Give the guy a shot. He was nervous. Oh, if he's nervous, then he's going to be nervous on the sideline. No, give the guy a shot. All he does is win football games. Best winning percentage in the entire NFL among active coaches. The guy is a winner. He should be a coach of the year candidate.
Well said. Sam Ostry from The Score. Great job across the board there. Oh, by the way, 2-0 too as well.
Let's go.
Live.
A 30-point win as underdogs for the Spurs. Love to see that.
Had the money line because of Sam, and we went over 43.5 points, rebounds, and assists for Wemby, who finished with 30, 11, and 6.
That's a homecoming for him.
Nice work by you, sir. 2-0. Nice work. Cup of coffee on me on the next time. So you're right. And let me back up by saying I was never the guy when he got hired that like, whoa, but it caught me off guard that he was hemming and humming and stumbling. I'm like, wow, how the hell? And the only question I asked was, what the hell did he say to Jeffrey Lurie during that dinner to get the gig?
Yeah.
And I have confidence in Jeffrey Lurie pulling the right strings and getting this right. And he might have hung on to Andy Reid a year too long, but guess what? He did it for a reason. And look what Andy turned into. Doug Peterson brought him in, got rid of Doug. Chip Kelly was successful, pulled the plug on Chip Kelly. Jeffrey Lurie is a pretty damn good owner at the end of the day. I could say that, 100% honesty. So here we are with Nick Sirianni, and in two parts, he continues to prove me wrong because I didn't lose my mind the rookie season until that loss where they got smashed by Vegas. And then that's when the season turned around after that loss. Same thing with Tampa. I didn't lose my mind until Tampa. Tampa irked the hell out of me because it didn't look like that team wanted to be there. And I thought that starts and ends with the head coach. He got their attention after that game. Whatever changed, I know, personnel changed a lot. Fangio's defense found their groove. And of course, you started seeing guys like Cooper DeJean started to play a little bit more. And of course, Quinyon started rising up, But putting that to the side, Nick Sirianni, I'm concerned whether or not he's ever going to get the proper praise he deserves because of what we saw this year. If you're not going to give Nick Sirianni, and I'm not a Nick Sirianni, I guess if you put me in a category of am I a Sirianni guy or am I not, I'm in the category that I'm not. And I have no qualms telling you that straight up. Like, there are plenty of people like, what's the matter with you? Me and my boy Colin were arguing about that because of the timeout situation. I was losing my mind over the Rams situation at the end of the first half. He should have called the timeout with 18 seconds. He didn't. He should have called the timeout before they picked up the first down. He didn't. I thought he butchered those two spots. I'm not saying fire him, but I'm being critical. I'm not in the Sirianni as a great head coach camp, but when it comes down to it, I think I'm wrong on that. Like, this guy has continued to prove me wrong. He has this team playing in an NFC championship game. You talk about all these teams with expectations. You brought up the 49ers. Where are they at? Big bad Shanahan is the head coach. Dan Campbell. Love him. Love Dan Campbell. Dude, you had a home playoff game against the Commanders, and you lost coming off a bye. Shame on you, Dan Campbell. Like, this guy has delivered and then some. And all I'll say is this. All right, so the finalist, as you brought up, Dan Campbell needs to be a finalist. Now, should he win the award? I don't know. I think if you made me make a case for somebody that should win the award, I'd probably say Dan Campbell. But that vote needed to go in before the playoffs, and it did. So knowing what we know now, of course, I can't sit here and say that with a straight face. But heading into the playoffs, I think Dan Campbell absolutely coached himself a brilliant season, delivered and then some, and has continued to build a program in Detroit that I never thought would be possible. This team is the first team in NFL history to win 3 more games year after year after year. In 3 straight years, he's won 3 more games every single season in Detroit. That's tough to beat.
Can I push back on the Dan Campbell thing? The thing about Dan Campbell is he's built a great culture there.
Oh,
but Dan Campbell is praised week in and week out. It's not against Dan Campbell. It's more that why is Sirianni treated so much differently than him? He's praised. This amazing motivator all over ESPN, all over these networks. He's this amazing motivator. Guys play hard for him, this and that. Adam Schefter, after every single win this year, he tweeted his post-game locker room speech. Like, he's getting all the great publicity.
They are pretty good.
So is Sirianni.
I don't know. I watched last night, and I thought Sirianni was
this last one wasn't as good. He's had some great ones.
And that's a flaw, that it doesn't matter, right? Like, the fact that he's not good on a microphone, I don't care. Does he get his team ready to go? Does he coach them to wins? And he does.
But he has to be a good communicator because he is a good motivator.
He's not a good communicator on the microphone.
Oh, no, I agree. Yeah, 100%. You know what I mean? 100%. But I'm saying
that should not matter.
I'm saying more on a granular level where it to the players, like one-on-ones and team meetings, you see he's a good communicator in that way, and he's a good motivator. So that's the thing. It's like Dan Campbell, he gets these guys to play so hard. So does Nick Sirianni. These guys, you can say it's for him, it's for their teammates, whoever it's for. Like, that's, these guys play hard for the coach. It's a cliche. Like, who knows why they're playing hard or who they're playing hard, but they're playing hard. The Eagles play really hard, just as, if not harder, than the Lions.
True. Nick
Sirianni doesn't call plays. Well, neither does Dan Campbell. So it's like, why does Dan Campbell get so much praise? But the conversation with Sirianni every week on Get Up and all these shows was, can the Eagles win with Sirianni as their coach? Dan Campbell is aggressive, just like Sirianni. Dan Campbell is borderline reckless. People forget that he lost them by being reckless, he lost them the NFC Championship.
15 or 17 points.
Exactly. He lost them the NFC Championship last year. Nick Sirianni's calculatedly aggressive. Yeah, and he's not reckless, in my opinion. I think that Sirianni just doesn't get the credit that he deserves. And Dan Campbell gets so much, and I'm like, what's the difference between these guys? Their teams both play hard for them. They both have loaded rosters. Like the Lions were a Super Bowl favorites. They were one of the Super Bowl favorites coming in this year. He didn't coach some scrubs to the number one seed in the NFC. Yeah, they lost one game. Well, really, the Eagles lost 2 games. You can say 3, but Hurts went out in that game.
Sure.
So I don't really care that they got the 1 seed. It's not who gets the 1 seed. To me, Nick Sirianni did just as good of a coaching performance, especially considering the collapse last year and especially considering the storm after 2-2 as Dan Campbell. And that's why he deserves this nominee as one of the Coach of the Year finalists.
I agree with you. I think it's a shame that he wasn't a top 5 candidate. And it really it should open up the door of why we should explore this and have this conversation, because I think, like I said, this is borderline disrespect.
Yeah.
And I'm with you as far as the Dan Campbell conversation, because 2 parts. One, like I said, what Campbell has built year after year after year, and I think that applies into the voters' perspective, right? But then you could say the same about what Sirianni has done. And this team, I get it. They had the collapse last year, but even more, the bounce back. The bounce back has to speak a little bit like higher on the scale of things. If we're
100%
trying to rank like reasons why you would vote for this candidate over this candidate, the fact that they went through because that was in the back of my mind.
It's a great point, because the vibes in Detroit was like, we're on the up and coming. We're coming into this team, into this season, like motivated. We were in the NFC Championship last year. We had a surprising year. We're ready to go this year. The vibes in Philadelphia at the end of last season were in the absolute dumpster, as low as they could possibly be. And Sirianni rebuilt that culture. And that is a ton of credit to him. So he had the harder task, like you just said. That's also why he deserves more credit.
It's crazy. And I don't know, does Howie Roseman take away from Nick Sirianni? Does Jeffrey Lurie take away from Nick Sirianni in the manner of, when you talk about this Eagles team and you said culture and putting it together? Yeah, they removed the offensive defensive coordinator and they replaced them. I don't think Nick Sirianni brought in his guys. I think that's a Howie Roseman, Jeffrey Lurie, and Nick Sirianni collaboration, right? Versus what took place in Detroit. Hell, I couldn't even tell you the owners in Detroit.
Exactly.
You know, I couldn't even tell you. I think I could tell you the general manager. Not off the top of my head. I couldn't tell you who the general manager is of the Detroit Lions. So maybe it's such a
Brad Holmes.
Is okay. I would never pull that out of my ass. I would just say this. I think maybe that is something that takes away from the standpoint of Nick Sirianni and the fact that he should be getting a little bit more credit versus, hey, you know what? Look, there is a unbelievable, solid front office that has been just incredible year after year. And oh, by the way, Jeffrey Lurie continues to pull all the right strings. Now, quickly moving off of Dan Campbell. Kevin O'Connell with the Vikings. Are you okay with him being in the top 5?
Yeah, I'm definitely okay with that, because he coached a team that wasn't considered to have a lot of talent. I think their preseason win total was 6.5.
Correct.
And he completely revitalized Sam Darnold's career, who's now going to get paid. So I don't have a problem with that at all.
Yeah. Would you say Kevin O'Connell or Nick Sirianni?
I'd say Kevin O'Connell. See, because I give the benefit of the doubt to these coaches like Kevin O'Connell, like Sean Payton, like Dan Quinn, who went into the season without great talent and not great rosters. They weren't expected to do great things, and they really outperformed expectations and took teams to new heights.
Yeah, but Kevin O'Connell has had good teams before and hasn't won a playoff game.
Yeah, but it's a regular season award, right? That's like Lamar Jackson, he's going to be the MVP for the 3rd time. No one's discounting his, and he was good in the playoffs.
But I would go Nick Sirianni above Kevin O'Connell.
Really? What? Just because they were the better team?
Just everything, like we discussed. What took place last year was such a disaster, how everything fell apart. And he had to change all of that, butt into heads with the quarterback, new coordinators coming in and just not missing a beat. I don't know.
I just completely flip-flopped our arguments. Now you're arguing about the for Sirianni.
Yeah.
But I think I give credit to coaches that are working with less.
All right.
And that's why Dan Campbell, and we'll get to Andy Reid, but Dan Campbell, when you have such great talent, I don't like it. And the Eagles' talent, you could say, is comparable to the Lions. You don't deserve that much credit. So I'm not saying Nick Sirianni should be the coach of the year, but he should be a finalist.
No. Yeah. Neither am I.
Yeah.
Look, I'm giving it to Dan Campbell. Dan Campbell would have got my vote.
Really?
Yes.
So what about Andy Reid? Where do you think he fits in?
Andy Reid is tough because he's never won it in Kansas City. And that would definitely play into my mind as a voter, whether I should or not. And then what Kansas City did, but at the end of the day, it's just Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's to me, it's who did the best.
Spags.
Yeah, it's who did the best coaching job that season.
I would have Nick Sirianni in front of Andy Reid. Would you?
Yeah, 100%. Because it's who did the best coaching job this season. Andy Reid, I have nothing bad to say about him. I love the guy.
He's incredible.
He's awesome, and he's a phenomenal coach. He has maybe the best quarterback of all time. All right, and yes, they only lost one game, two at the end, in a game they didn't even try. But still, he has the best quarterback of all time. So I give it to who did the best coaching job. When I look at who did the best coaching job, it's guys like Kevin O'Connell, it's guys like Dan Quinn, who took teams that were really bad last season.
Yeah.
And brought them to new heights. And a guy like Nick Sirianni, whose culture was completely destroyed, you could say, last season, and rebuilt it.
Sean Payton or Nick Sirianni?
Sean Payton.
Okay.
So I got Sean Payton, Dan Quinn, and Kevin O'Connell as my top three. And then I got Nick Sirianni, number 4.
Wow. All right. So the guy who's going to win the award, you don't even have him in top 5.
Who's that?
Dan Campbell.
You think he's going to win? Well, what were the odds last time they closed? You think he's definitely going to win?
I thought.
I didn't
really
look at the odds. I don't know.
I feel like uh-oh. I don't want to be so back that up. Let me just bring this up because you have the preseason odds.
Mm-hmm.
And damn it, like I need to take a flyer on this.
Yeah.
I remember talking about this preseason, but I didn't wager on it. I'm not, I'm the type of guy that doesn't like to wrap up money for 5 months, 6 months. Here we are at the preseason into getting paid out in February.
Yeah.
But this market is incredible. Talk about the numbers here. First of all, Dan Campbell, let's just say he is the front runner. He is the guy that's going to win it. What was his preseason odds?
Plus 2,200.
That's an unbelievable number.
Well, here's the thing about this market is for the last 5 winners, all of their preseason odds were plus 20 to 1 or longer.
Wow.
So there's a lot of value if you pick the right guy in this market.
Absolutely.
All these guys are long. Like Jim Harbaugh was the favorite.
I was down on Harbaugh on the Chargers this year, and I got that wrong.
Yeah, so he was the favorite at plus 925.
Still a nice little penny there to have tied up and take a little bit of a flyer on it, and I would not have went with him. Nick Sirianni playing the home bias. What was his number preseason?
Plus 4,500.
See, that's crazy. I should have thrown something there, like at least
but
a cup of coffee to have a play in.
But to our whole conversation is he's always been discredited.
Yeah.
So he was never going to win the conversation.
Correct. Yeah. He never was discussed. So that's why I'm okay with saying he's being disrespected, and I don't know when that will change, if it will ever, even with a Super Bowl victory.
Yeah, I don't think it will.
Even with the Super Bowl victory, I don't think Nick Sirianni is going to get the credit.
If they get that Super Bowl victory, he deserves to go on a huge FU tour to people. Oh my God. He's really matured where he kind of limits the antics. He's not celebrating. He keeps that straight face. He's really matured from that regard as a coach. But man, if they win the Super Bowl, he can go on all time. There are so many people to call out. And I don't know if you saw, but Pat McAfee, this was like a couple months ago. He had his guy Ty Schmidt dressed up as Sirianni and like come at Orlovsky, all these guys who said he's not a good coach, and saying, "What are they talking about? All you do is win." And they were acting like he was dressed up as Sirianni, which was hilarious. And Sirianni just sat back there like laughing and smiling. Yeah. He loved every second of it. But they had way more work to do, as they still do. But he should go on an all-time victory lap, which he won't, but he should if they win the Super Bowl.
He answered a question during the second half after halftime, and I forget who the sideline reporter was. And she asked him something about Jalen Hurts and like, what is he going to be like in the second half? And Nick Sirianni, like, what do you think he's going to say? He said something along the lines of like, he's fine or
he's good.
He's good. And like kept it moving. And people were like, wow, what a DIC. And I'm just like, dude, it was a bad question. Like, what do you think you're going to get? He's
also amazing to the media. I mean, this guy, every question he gets, he answers it for like 4 minutes.
I agree.
Just goes on these tangents and spews. And he tries to answer. I mean, he doesn't give a lot about injuries. You can't expect a coach to, or gameplay, game strategy, or all that. But he really tries to give the media and the beat reporters everything he can.
I would agree with that. Quickly on this, one more note on as far as the coach of the year here. Would you take Jonathan Gannon over Nick Sirianni?
No.
Not as a coach of the year award, excuse me. Just as far as a coach for your franchise. Who's a better coach?
Nick Sirianni.
All right, Raheem Morris.
Nick Sirianni.
John Harbaugh.
Oh, that's tough. It's John Harbaugh. John Harbaugh, similar,
right.
where he builds a good culture, good relationship with the players.
Sean McDermott,
Sean McDermott,
Dave Canales,
Sirianni,
Ben Johnson. Well, no. Put that in. Sorry. Zach Taylor, Cincinnati.
Sirianni. Talk about bad clock management.
Mm.
Oh, I don't trust Zach.
Kevin Stefanski, Cleveland Browns.
Kevin Stefanski.
Interesting.
He coached that. He was coach of the year last year, actually.
Yeah.
He coached that Browns team. If they had a quarterback, man, they would be good.
Sean Payton or Nick Sirianni?
Sean Payton.
Dan Campbell or Nick Sirianni?
Nick Sirianni.
Matt LaFleur, Nick Sirianni.
Matt LaFleur.
D'Amico Ryans, Nick Sirianni.
Probably D'Amico.
Shane Steichen or Sirianni.
Nick.
Andy,
of course.
Jim.
Sean
McVay or Nick Sirianni?
Sean McVay.
Mike McDaniel or Sirianni?
Sirianni.
Kevin O'Connell. Vrabel.
Give me Sirianni still.
Dable.
Sirianni.
Mike Tomlin.
Tomlin. I mean, like Tomlin, he's done it for decades.
Kyle Shanahan or Sirianni?
Shanahan.
Mike McDonald with the Seahawks.
Sirianni.
Todd Bowles with the Bucks.
Sirianni.
Brian Callahan with the Titans.
Sirianni.
Dan Quinn.
Dan Quinn, probably.
So you got Sirianni probably like 10 to 15 range.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think that's fair. Like he's the best winning percentage of all active coaches. Yes, he's the best GM in the league. They're probably one of, if not the best organization from ownership on down. They attract a ton of talent. They draft really well. He's had great teams. You still got to go out there and execute and win games. And he's had a ton of coordinators moves and switches and all that. And he still is the lead man through it all. And in his 4 years, they've been amazing, nothing but successful. All the guy does is win football games.
Fantastic stuff. We're putting Sam Ostry to work as we did last Thursday as well. I remember the 4:00 hour last Thursday. I had you just rapping about NBA and college hoops. I put you right to work. Nice work there, going down the list again.